Hey, Stewart's Chapel, this is Don Pierson and Don Counts, and this is, what devotion is this, Don?
Monday.
This is Monday's devotion. Squeezed in between the telling of the parable of the sower and the explanation of the parable of the sower in the Gospel of Matthew chapter 13, we find this statement by Jesus in verses 13 of Matthew 13. Listen to what it says. And Jesus is speaking. Therefore I speak to them in parables, because seeing they do not see, hearing they do not hear, nor do they understand. And in them the prophecy of Isaiah is fulfilled, which says, hearing you will hear, and shall not understand, and seeing you will see, and not perceive. For the hearts of this people have grown dull. The hearts of this people have grown dull. Their ears are hard of hearing, and their eyes they have closed, lest they should see with their eyes and hear with their ears, lest they should understand with their hearts and turn, so that I should heal them. Blessed are your eyes, talking to the disciples, for they see, and your ears, for they hear. For assuredly I say to you that many prophets and righteous men desire to see what you see, and did not see it, and to hear what you hear, and did not hear it. You know, their hearts have grown dull. It does say that lest they should hear. The reason they can't hear and understand is not because the Lord is blocking their understanding. They themselves have chosen to harden their hearts, to dull their hearts. Very similar to the story yesterday about the fact that I refused to listen to wise counseling. God's people repeatedly chose to ignore God's warnings and the prophets of His people. And over the years and centuries, God's people had become hardened to even the truth, the basic truths of who the Messiah would be and what He would come to do. There was a team coming to Belize, a sports team that was coming to Belize, and one of the things that they were going to do was do a sports clinic about volleyball. My job was to make sure that I had everything ready for volleyball to take place, so that they could have their training and then at the same time share the gospel. Me and Willie and John Bull took on the task of getting the poles and setting up the volleyball area the few days before they came. At that time, I must not have been in Belize very long, because I'm going to tell you right now, I learned from this experience. We went out into the bush and we found two trees that were pretty straight, and we cut them down. Now, John Bull was Mayan, and John had told us, he says, I don't think that one's a good tree. And so at first we looked other ways, and we couldn't find another one. And I came back and I said, John, I said, it's a good straight tree. That's what an American would say, I think, revealing their ignorance. John said, I'm telling you, I don't think we should cut that tree down. That's not a good tree. Well, I wouldn't listen, and so I cut that tree down. I carried that tree on my shoulder out of the jungle to the Bronco, and we carried it out in the field. We dug the holes, and I picked up that tree. I dropped it in that hole. By that time, it was the hot tropical climate, and I had taken my shirt off, and I shimmied up that tree to tie the volleyball net on. I felt pretty good. We had a task was accomplished. That night, I began to itch. And I'm not talking about a little bit. I'm talking about a lot. I broke out. There were black spots all over my chest and my arms and my shoulder that I thought was just sap from that tree. But you see that tree, those of you that are listening to in Belize will know exactly what I'm talking about. There's a name for it, and I cannot remember it. I think it starts with a C in Spanish. But that tree was black poison wood. In Belize, they have two trees that you definitely don't want to mess with. One is the black poison wood. There's a name for it. I can't remember it. And the other is the white poison wood. Walking under those trees will give you poison. They drip sap from their branches, and it's like acid, and when it hits you, it literally burns and kills and will form a crater and literally will poison your blood. Needless to say, I laid in our tub in baking soda, vinegar, everything everybody could tell me to do for what seemed like forever. My body, my blood was filled with that poison. Ended up at the Seventh-day Adventist hospital where they gave me a shot to get rid of it. Needless to say, I can tell you what that tree looks like today. I can tell that tree anytime I'm in Belize, I go, meh, ain't getting near that one. Don't want anything to do with that. But you see, I didn't listen to wise counsel that day. My pride allowed me, the older one, to overrule one who was much wiser that day. I had good intentions, and that's where I want to bring it back to you. I had good intentions. There's a phrase, it's not biblical, but it sounds like it. It says, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Not exactly biblical, but it is true. I do not believe that the rich young ruler ever intended of going to hell, but he went to hell. I've got a feeling that all of those who had hardened their hearts and that could not understand what Jesus was saying had any intention of going to hell. I'm convinced that most that are going to hell and are going to go to hell today have no intention of going there. But they won't listen to God's counsel and to His Word. Most will even argue with Him, especially when He declares that Jesus is the only way to the Father, to heaven. They're going to argue and say, no, I think I can find another way. And they will spend their whole life trying to find another way. When a heart grows hard, we are no longer able to hear, and we are no longer able to see what God wants us to hear and what God wants us to see. How's your heart? Love you, Steers Chapel.